The countdown has begun for British Prime Minister Theresa May. Her Brexit deal faces the Parliament test on the 15th of January. May has suffered a series of setbacks already. First, she lost the option to leave the European Union without a deal. May now needs the Parliament's approval for a no-deal Brexit. To add to the humiliation, members of her own party joined the opposition to inflict the second setback last night. Now the British government only has 3 days to come up with revised plans if May loses the Brexit vote next week. Theresa May now finds herself boxed in and she doesn't have many options. Meanwhile, the opposition has stepped up its efforts, asking for fresh elections. Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn is now demanding a general election to break the deadlock on Brexit.
If the government cannot pass its most important legislation, then there must be a general election at the earliest opportunity. A government that cannot get its business through the House of Commons is no government at all. It's lost its mandate, so must go to the country to seek another.
The United Kingdom is set to leave the European Union on the 29th of March. Last year, the EU had cleared a deal that can only come into force if the British Parliament clears it. But British lawmakers remain divided over Brexit. The Labour does not back the Brexit deal. The ruling Conservatives are split between a hard and a soft Brexit. A significant number of lawmakers still prefer that the UK leaves the EU without any deal, an idea that Theresa May is not going to entertain. Joining us is Catherine Drew, Wion correspondent from London. Good evening, Catherine. How much trouble is Theresa May in?
Well, she does face a tricky few days ahead of this crucial vote next Tuesday. Almost everyone expects that she will lose this vote by some measure. This is the vote, of course, that just 4 or 5 weeks ago she postponed after days of her own government ministers saying the vote on this withdrawal agreement would not be postponed. At the last minute, she withdrew it because the government was expecting a heavy defeat. Many people say that she is expecting another defeat. There was some glimmer of hope. MPs are continuing, and they're in the middle of the 5 days of debate on this withdrawal plan. And one MP, the first Conservative, George Freeman, he was the first person to switch. He says he doesn't like this deal, but that his constituents, when they voted to leave, they did not vote for a no-deal scenario. They did not vote for economic chaos. So he said with a heavy heart he's going to be backing it. Now, this is a glimmer of hope for Theresa May. This is what she's hoping for, that people will stare into the abyss of a potential no deal and think, well, we'd better back her deal. But as I say, and as you mentioned, an awful lot to play here. So it's going to be a tense few days for Theresa May.
Is it fair to say that it's near impossible then to stick to the deadline at least? And how do the people, the citizens of the UK, see this? Would they rather live without a Brexit now? Are they having second thoughts about that referendum in the first place?
Well, the deadline is indeed a tricky question. I mean, it could be that by default, the UK does tumble out of the European Union membership and fall back onto WTO trading terms, which many economists say could be catastrophic. Even the business minister, Greg Clark, was saying today that there could be catastrophic damage to the economy. So that is the big fear, which could play in Theresa May's favour. Many people, of course, calling for an extension of Article 50, which would mean that the UK would have to go back to the EU and basically ask for more time. Theresa May has ruled that out. But there are growing calls for this second referendum, led, of course, by the people who wanted to remain in the first place, remain within the European Union. There are growing calls, and some cabinet ministers have even said, such as Amber Rudd, the Work and Pensions Secretary, has said that such a referendum may be necessary. The big sticking block with this is that Labour, led by Jeremy Corbyn, as yet are not officially behind this second referendum, or at least he isn't. Many of his MPs are. He is gunning for this new general election. The timing isn't really on his side. I think Labour hopes they can have a very swift election, come into power, probably right up against that deadline, and then they would be forced to ask the EU for an extension. So a lot of scenarios. Should Theresa May lose the vote next week, then all of these scenarios come into play.
Catherine Drew, thanks very much for bringing us that update. Lots of developments on the political front today. The top headline, the sacking of the CBI director. It's back to square one for CBI director Alok Verma. 2 days after the Apex Court reinstated him as director, he's been removed from the post by the selection panel on charges of corruption. This panel is headed by the Prime Minister of India. It also has the Chief Justice of India. In this case, he was represented by Justice A.K. Sikri and leader of the opposition in the Lok Sabha, who's Mallikarjun Kharge. The panel decided to remove Mr. Verma with a 2-1 majority. Kharge opposed the sacking. Verma had resumed office only yesterday and he immediately revoked most of the transfers done by the interim CBI chief M. Nageshwar Rao. Mr. Rao will look after the duties of the CBI director till a new appointment is made. Verma's sacking has opened a can of worms, with the opposition saying that the CBI director was being targeted. But this is what our sources are saying. Verma was given a chance to present his case before the Chief Vigilance Commissioner in the presence of retired Justice Patnaik. Hence, the allegations that he was not given a fair hearing are wrong. The Supreme Court provided a copy of the CVC report to Mr. Verma's lawyer, so he does know about the allegations. And the third point, the mandate of the selection panel headed by the Prime Minister is limited to two things: the appointment and transfer of a CBI chief. So the selection panel's decision is well within the rules. It does not discriminate against Alok Verma. Moving on to the next big story that happened today, the Apex Court has adjourned the Ram Janmabhoomi Babri Masjid title dispute today. The reason is this: one of the 5 judges in the constitutional bench, Justice Uday Lalit, recused himself from the case. He's pulled out. The decision came after senior advocate Rajiv Dhawan pointed out that Justice Lalit had appeared as a lawyer for former Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Kalyan Singh in a related case. The court will reconstitute a new bench and then the matter will be heard on the 29th of this month.
हम भी चाहेंगे, जैसे पूरे भारत के लोग चाहते हैं, कि इस पे निर्णय जल्द से जल्द सुप्रीम कोर्ट का आए, क्योंकि विश्वास है कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट वही निर्णय देगा जो हाई कोर्ट ने दिया था। मगर उसके कोई विपरीत होता तो सरकारों को रास्ता फिर मिलता है क्या बनाने का, क्योंकि राम मंदिर तो बनना चाहिए, ये हम लोग का विश्वास है।
When you're facing a make-or-break election in a diverse country like India, your best bet would be to have strong regional leaders. Looks like the Congress is trying to follow that rule. Given its performance in 2014, it may as well do so. Chief spokesperson of the Congress party and senior leader Randeep Surjewala will contest the by-election from Jind. This is an assembly constituency in Haryana. It's a last-ditch attempt by the Congress party to win in Haryana, where it suffered a drubbing in the recent mayoral elections. Surjewala is the safest bet for the Congress party in this region. He could become a contender for the chief minister's post if the Congress comes to power in the next assembly election. Meanwhile, small and medium-scale industries can heave a sigh of relief. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley has doubled the GST exemption limit, bringing down tax, meaning this decision is significant because small companies will have an option to opt out of the GST net. Mr. Jaitley also went beyond the party politics and allowed Kerala to levy 1% calamity cess for a period of 2 years. Remember, the CPI government sought it after Kerala floods.
For those who utilize the composition scheme, from 1st April onwards, it will be quarterly tax payment, but only one annual return. तो जिसकी 40 लाख तक टर्नओवर है, अगर वो जीएसटी चेन का बेनिफिट नहीं क्लेम करना चाहता, तो वो exempted रहेगा.
Talking about money, the world's richest man may now lose half of his wealth. Amazon founder and CEO Jeff Bezos and his wife Mackenzie Bezos have decided to part ways. And this might be the world's most expensive divorce yet, which could shake up the global wealth rankings. Here's how.
25 years ago, an investment banker left his high-profile job to move to Seattle. This man, Jeff Bezos, married his love interest, Mackenzie, and started an online bookstore from the garage of his home. 2.5 decades later, Bezos' professional venture Amazon has eclipsed Microsoft to become the world's most valued listed company. On the personal front though, all has not been well. The Bezoses have announced their separation. A joint statement released by them on Twitter read, and I quote, After a long period of loving exploration and trial separation, we have decided to divorce and continue our shared lives as friends. Having met at a job interview in 1992, they shared a common office space. After 3 months of dating, they married in 1993 and relocated to Seattle, where the couple started Amazon. McKinsey is believed to have played a pivotal role in helping Bezos chart out a plan for the online retail firm. But as the firm grew, McKinsey took a backseat, limiting her roles to hosting social gatherings, writing books, and taking on philanthropic ventures alongside her husband. The duo fondly flaunted their romance in the statement. They claimed, and I quote, "If we had known we would separate after 25 years, we would do it all again." But not everything is as bright and sunny as this power couple might want to project. Jeff Bezos is reported to have been romantically involved with a former TV personality, Lauren Sanchez. A media scoop also claims that McKinsey is aware of his relationship, and perhaps this could be the reason for their separation. Grape wine aside, there are talks of it being the most expensive split ever. If the couple split their fortune equally, it could make McKinsey world's richest woman with $69 billion in her kitty. Bezos' fortunes, though, will take a hit, having to part with half of his wealth. Currently number 1 on the rich list with a net worth of around $137 billion, the split could push him to number 2 on the billionaire index. The talks of a bifurcation of wealth is based on Washington law, which claims that all assets acquired during the marriage by either spouse are equally split unless there's a prenuptial agreement stating otherwise. There is also no clarity if the couple have a prenuptial agreement, but many believe that the settlement is going to be anything but ugly. Money can make divorces tricky, but for the ultra-rich it can also make it far less frightening. Perhaps that's why the imminent divorce of the Bezoses sounds more like a transaction than an emotional upheaval. Bureau Report, Wion, World is One.